I like it. Gotta relax.
This is Earth Radio. Now here's human music.
Human music. I like it. I like it. I like it. I like it. Gotta relax.
This is Earth Radio. And now here's human music.
Human music. I like it. I like it. I like it. and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, this is Ian with Void Strummer bringing you Mildewds Live Procedural NFT Development. And welcome you all are. How y'all doing today? That was my big radio guy introduction. Radio guy. Maybe more gravelly, radio guy. Well, that just sounds like Dr. Claw. I'll get you, Gadget, next time. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, hello. How are you doing? I am well as one such as myself gets, which is, it's a pretty wide range. So I guess that means could be if I well as I can get. That's actually an overstatement. But let's just say I'm doing fine right now. I'm energized by our time together, and I am excited to work on this project with you. We're going to be slapping around some Mildewds today. It's going to be somewhat technical from my end, but I believe one Batman Pop-Tart will be joining us shortly, and he may be able to provide some more down-to-earth sculptural activities. But for myself, I am going to focus on hooking up the system and working out a little issue that I have. But here's some of the stems so far. We're mixing and matching these in the system. This is still using a somewhat more primitive system than I'd prefer, but we're able to do some fun stuff with it. Take a look. Oh God, this is the worst. Just open it in a tool that makes sense, that isn't a piece of shit. Okay, so I've got Share X here, and I click an item in the Share X interface, and it just pops up this full screen horse shit that nobody wants. Well, okay, nobody being me, because I don't know anybody else. But in any case, let's see, screenshots folder. I'm going right over here too. I just want to share with you. Let's just open up with, this is a slightly less shitty application. So experimenting with blending these together. As you'll see, because of the way I've treated the polygons up in the cheekbones here, they tend to get kind of crimped up. I'm not sure what I'm going to do about that yet, but that's okay. I've sculpted 4 of these guys. Actually, one of them is really jacked up because I accidentally. Okay, pro tip, by the way, if you change the polygroups in ZBrush, that will change your vertex order, which is not explicitly stated. I guess, what are the expectations for explicit statement of polygon vertex reordering? But then on the other hand, it's a fairly important topic, so I kind of want to know when that's happening, and I had no idea. So I used some polygroup changes for this fellow in particular. I made a polygroup below and above his mouth so it'd be a little easier to close the mouth up. It was a hassle with this guy, so I changed it for this guy. Unfortunately, when I went in to add it to the shape keys in Blender, the little blend shapes that you can between. It revealed to me that it was had become hot garbage. So I spent a lot of yesterday trying to plug it into our 3DS, the crazy Russian ZWrap tool. I'm just using their standalone application because I could get a, what is it called? A perpetual license for that. I bought a perpetual license on sale over the holiday here. Wanted to get some use out of it, but it turns out there are some issues when you have floating geometry that I was not able to sort out yesterday. However, it did lead me to a better approach for these in general. So let's dive in. Open recent. Ink caps. Okay, that's the triangle purge. So this was my first attempt to purge the triangles, and I'm going to show you why it's bad. But it also taught me. It actually just reminded me what I learned when I first attempted this. So this is my base here for the Mildewds. This edition of Mildewds. These are the ink caps. We haven't finalized the name yet, but they're somewhat malignant and somewhat mustachioed, or at least that's the ultimate intention. So it'll be named along those lines. Now, when I go over here and I do this transition, you'll see I have these empties targeted, and I thought I was being all clever because my system. Well, I'll just show you the previous system because that's going to be easier for you to understand. Don't save. Don't stop saving up for tomorrow. Yeah, I got no plans for that lyric right there, so I'll just stop. This nose situation might be a little silly as well, as it's like sort of pressed into the lip there. This is why I want to abandon this all at once system for building these heads, but it's certainly more enjoyable and easier to sculpt for this approach. So we're going to do it for this one. I suspect a lot of noses are going to get lost in big bushy mustaches, but such is life. Such is the life of a digital fungus. So you see I have these triangles here. Now these triangles are special and very handy. And what they allow me to do is I can mount things to them. So let's just put, let's see, Shift A, open all those up. And then what do I got to do? Just, we could turn on rocks and all that stuff. Oh, man. Control, there we go. So let's get rid of those ones and bring these ones back to life. The touch, the feel of cotton, the fabric of our lives. Where has my stuff gone? Come on. Oh, I turned off the collection. That was silly. Okay, so you see how I have the eye. You know, there are these empties here. They're called empties in Blender, if you're not familiar with that. They're just like, it's not even a vertex. It's an object that does not contain a data block, I believe. Yeah, it contains a data block of an empty. I haven't looked it up before. But in Blender, objects are anything that can exist in the sort of coordinate space, the space of the scene. And depending, they might be a light, they might be a piece of geometry, they might be a curve, whatever it is. Those are all stored in data blocks. Data blocks, you can actually see them here in the outliner view under Blender file. And you just get a whole list of the different types of things that can be in a Blender file. And as you add stuff, they'll pop up in here. So it doesn't list a category if there's nothing in it. But if I add, say, a grease pencil, for example, then I get a grease pencil collection that has the one I just created in it. Okay, so, and that's all handy to know about and utilize when you're scripting in Blender. So I mention it by way of your edification. Just enjoy the expansion of your mind. Quiet. Let's see. Replying to, wow, my notifications exploded. Appreciate the tag, buddy. Oh, yeah. Sweet. I was in this, I'm going to have to remember to do this. Okay, I'm getting a little distracted here. I need to remember to get back to this tweet. So I'm just going to make a quick note in I've got my custom LifeOS database here that I rather like, reply tweet. And when something comes up, because I have a history of can't hold things in my brain for very long or very much at a time. And I've read that it is associated with ADHD, which I was diagnosed with late in life. So I'm a little obsessed with it. I'm a little obsessed with like how it affected my early life and how to optimize for it now, because my whole life I've been building these systems to treat or to deal with my various challenges with memory and impulsivity and inability to start sometimes, that sort of thing. So I built a system for it. Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent. It's very handy. Notion.so, highly recommend it. Is the most badass organizing and tool I've ever used, and it's applicable way beyond that. So check it out. Ask me questions. I'd be happy to talk to you about it, because it's a hell of a useful thing to have around. I manage and organize all of my shit in there now. Okay, so I just made a note to reply to that tweet, and we can get back to work. All right, let's get this a little less distractingly out of my face. That seems fine. We'll just do that. Okay, now, so we've got these triangles. Now, the triangles are currently part of this mesh, right? And so the value of that is this. When, let's see here, this thing moves around, well, how to explain the value of it to make sense to you? Maybe we just got to hook it up. I'll show you what goes wrong, though. Let's just show you what goes wrong. If I were to go to this other scene where I've removed the triangles and I've directly mounted these pieces onto the geometry using parent to triangle, which is a feature in Blender, which is pretty rad. What you can do is you can take an object, you can pick another object, a mesh. You can right click and you can say, let me parent that thing, like a hierarchy child parent, that one controls the other. Or one, the other one, the child inherits the parent's transformations. And then you can pick vertex triangle. And what's pretty sweet, it will kind of hang with the position of the mesh. Now, it doesn't suffer like these wild deformations. If you have a wig, it's that you're mounting in this way, it's only kind of mounted to one triangle in there. So if it's moving around like this, but the rest of the head isn't deforming, not a big deal. However, if the head deforms and becomes wide or whatever, it's not necessarily going to cause the wig to match. It's a big pain in the butt. Let's see. Pfizer says new study shows that 3 doses of its COVID-19 vaccine protection against the Omicron variant. So we got to watch out for that, my friends. All right. But in the meantime, we'll be mean. Okay. So the issue here is things are great and work fine. Just imagine there's an eye with some eyelids attached to this thing. But for now, we'll just recognize that what we've got. Let's just make it toggle X-ray so you can see the whole thing. So this is in the eye socket, the nose area, beard, and that sort of thing. You got the cap on the top. So it works great in situations as follows. Go over here to modifiers. We got this simple bend. Turn that on. Hey, it's bending over. And look, everything is following the geometry just the way you would expect, staying in position so that we can have those variations where the thing gets all noodly and bends over, as many organic objects tend to do. So we're in great shape there. However, when we go to deal with the shape keys, which is sort of fundamental to this whole thing, because the shape keys allow it to really make those dramatic changes that make them look distinctive, we get a problem. And this is actually was a problem I discovered early in the process, however, early in the last version of Mildewds, but I did not recall when I was thinking, I just get rid of these triangles and do it this way. So essentially, I forgot that I had, Batman's here. I had forgot that I had done it this way previously and why it failed. And so I therefore did it again and then recalled why it failed. However, this has led to an improvement, which we shall implement today. Hello, Batman. How you doing, bud?
Good. You?
Yeah, just blasting it out here. Just
I love it. I've been hanging. I actually like that the last couple times because I'm late. I often am. I always push my time thinking, I can eat in 3 minutes. That's not real. And so I'm always late. But it's kind of cool because I sort of sneak in and I'm backstage for a while. And I get to enjoy the show. And then it's like I'm a welcome contestant on Jamie McGow, come on down. And I'm like
entirely. Come on here, Jamie. That's right. Rolling right up. Tell them where you're from. No, do it.
I can't remember anything. I don't know who I am or where I am, but I want to win a car. So let's do this.
All right. Well, we're rolling here. So I was just explaining why the brilliant solution I came up with yesterday is actually was actually not brilliant and fails. And here is the definition of why it fails. So looking at these crosses here, imagining this is mounting like an eyeball with lids that need to be oriented in a reasonable way. We then fire up one of these shape keys. Oh no! Now those eyes point into its face, right? And that's all because this thing is really only mounted to one teeny tiny triangle in there.
Oh.
And as that triangle is deformed, so too is it'd be looking up. And I went the other way. Anyway, that triangle is deformed by the new position in the sculpt and ends up looking up into the sky, which is why I invented the triangle system to begin with. But the triangle system leads to all kinds of trouble. The issue there being, did I just screw this? Triangle purge? No. Okay, we need to get this one up. There we go. So it leads to all kinds of trouble because you have these floating triangles. They're in the way. If you don't handle them correctly, then the mesh will no longer deform properly when you do a shape key. It'll just turn into a mess. So they cause difficulties. You can't Z-wrap there. They're not very flexible. You can't add them later. Once you've sort of built out your set, you're done.
Yeah. Well, it's so funny because a little inside baseball for everybody. Verbal was just kind of going through this issue with me a little bit yesterday because it's which I'm glad because oftentimes we'll face problems separately and you're like, kind of like the day he had yesterday. He's like, oh, I worked all day and did nothing except for figure out what I need to do or like have all these problems not work. So I'm like more knowledgeable, but like my time is gone. And so that counts for something because that time is, you need to log that somehow. And I'm like, well, dude, we said we weren't going to R&D much on these. Like, let's use the system we have. And he's like, oh no, this is a problem that has been here. I just forgot it. And now I have to deal with it. I'm like, oh, that's a different situation.
Yeah, it's screwing up. It's screwed me up a bunch of times. It's screwed up. It screws up integrating new shapes, and it needs to change. But the good news is there is a way to change it, and it will probably make things a lot better. So
yeah, the only thing I could come up with, I was like, well, if we adjust the scale of the polygons or triangles within that eye cavity, so that one triangle that it's actually locking onto, even though it may deform kind of ugly when it's deforming, at least if it stays inside of the eye socket, it may still be okay. But go ahead, it sounds like you have
no, I mean solution. that's a reasonable partial. It's like a half step. That would be a half measure to get there, but it makes dealing with all of those a hassle, and it means that we have to adjust teeny tiny little pieces of geometry on all those bits. And I think that there's a better solution. And here's what it is. I'm going to test it today. I'm pretty sure it's going to work, but I was pretty sure it was going to work yesterday. So we'll see. What we're going to do is I'm going to save this scene under a new name because it's all working right now. So we're going to call this triangle separation. It's going to be a different approach. 01. I'm going to save that out. And what we're going to do, we're going to take the base here, go to just the basis is fine. What are we doing here? Edit mode, basis. There we go. Now, I believe we can take all them, which we're going to do. And I think it's P to separate by selection. And that is going to result in a new object outside of the scene. And hopefully it will retain its vertex groups. We'll see about that. It's not looking super promising right now, but we'll see. This is a sort of new territory. So this is now a separate object. And they both have the vertex groups. That's actually excellent because that saves me a little bit of time down the road. So I can take like the mount for the cap, which is this triangle right up here. And I can still select. Okay, great. So that's still all in place, which is going to be really handy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to separate these into two meshes, and I'm going to make matching sets of what am I trying to say here? Matching sets of shape keys. So because these, when the shape keys are run on they worked great when they were integrated with the stems, because when the shape key fires off, these would still stay oriented correctly. They're out here so that you can mount the parts to them. So if you put them inside the mesh and you try to mount the eyeball to it, it just gets parented to some random vertex here. But if you put it way out here, it gets parented to this specific triangle, which is awesome. I went in and tried to edit things like manually by setting the vertex numbers for what they were parented to, which is doable, but also a hassle. So, but by separating them out here, my hope is that we'll now have a single manifold mesh within our stem mesh, and then we'll have this sort of like a sidecar here that will synchronize with it. And what I'll have to do is make a matching set of shape keys, and we'll have to position those, but they can be authored independently. The whole thing can be swapped out if it needs to be modified without affecting any of the sculpture. So we'd still have to redo like the shape key positioning, but we wouldn't have to redo the sculpture, which would be hot. So that's what we're going to do. That's what I'm working on here. What are you working on, brah?
I was just going to go back and refine some of these shapes I'd started off with. We seem to have like a foldy, creepy, chinny bunch and going on here, and I'm digging it. It'll be really cool to see kind of how these more fleshy looking guys turn out. I'm curious to see if we need to add some cuteness back into it, but the little glossy eyes, they really do a lot, because even some of the little shapes that we both made towards the end of our Primordia Saturnus ones. Some of them are a little kind of jarring looking, and then they tilt and their eyes are added, and
they get that little like cute head tilt. Like, I don't understand you.
Yeah, I'm just.
Or maybe I do.
Maybe I do, and I'm pretending. So yeah, I'm just gonna. I promise to have these done by end of the day, and this is a good break from all the other stuff I'm working on. Anyways.
Excellent.
So it's fantastic. So yeah, I'm just gonna try and see if I can make something worthwhile.
All right. Well, let's see if we can get this working. There's a few things that I need to test, so let me put those out there, and hopefully they'll stay in my brain as a result. Or maybe I'll just type them at the same time in my little organizer over here.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if there's anything you talked about remaking the shape keys for some of the this new version. I mean, do you need me to assist in any way with what you got?
No. You can do what you're doing right now. I'm just verifying that. So one of the things I need to do is verify can bring in shapes with triangles easily. So I'm pretty sure this is going to work fine, but I just need to test it outright. So if right now, if this doesn't work, we'll abandon it and we'll stick with the system we have. But in order to make sure that it does work, I have to verify that we can bring in yours or my other ones that are my one that's broken and other ones that I have, just to make sure that there's not something surprising happening, or there's not some situation where the vertex order is getting all munged again. So I'm going to test that. I need to test actual part mounting, and I need to test synchronize shape keys. Okay. And then I think the rest of it should work out pretty well. I can take this little triangle mesh and I can add the same deformers and everything else. I can put it in the same lattice that the rest of the system gets applied to it. So I think we'll be all right. But we got to do it to find out.
Do it.
All right. So, okay, so these are my triangle mounts. Name them thusly. I'm a big fan of these underscores. I'm just going to go ahead and use those underscores there.
Oh man, I know. I really need to commit long term to a naming convention. I go back and forth between the capitalization of the first letter of each word and the underscores, and it's terribly inconsistent because whatever you're feeling in that moment is like, is this an underscore or a capitalized situation? Oh well. It was fleeting, and I chose one. It was a 50-50 chance, and I'll pay for it later.
I feel you on that urge to standardize.
Well, especially, because what you're doing is actually really critical, especially when you're trying to reference objects in a scene and you're scripting, and you're like, what did I call that again?
Yeah, it would be nice if they were consistent. I have a similar problem. I cannot commit to a system. And I gave up trying to commit to a system. I just decided, well, I have a handful of systems. They all kind of work for me, and it's generally not a problem. For instance, I kind of hedge against my issues in my code by just creating like these big blocks of hard coding references to the objects, so that once I have the reference hooked up, I don't have to deal with it ever again, which is handy. And then my code editor hints as to what the variable names are. But in the rest of my projects, it's hit or miss. I have a few systems, like I said, that I like that seem to work okay, but it's different from project to project, or different within each project. So
it's like passwords. You're like, what's that?
You never know. You're never gonna know what you're gonna find. Are you following the clown map, by the way, for your sculptures here?
Yes. Okay.
So
I made sure that with all of these, I deformed first. Is this okay that this is
perfect?
Preaching?
Yep. Okay. Exactly what I was expecting. Good.
Because I knew. I was like, much like with you learn with sculpting, it's like you got to do the big stuff first so that you can screw around later. I know myself. I'm like,
by following the clown map, it means that my nose is in the same place as Jamie's nose, and my mouth, the lips on my sculptures are the same place as his, so that when they blend, it looks like the mouth is transitioning from one position to another and not appearing out of its chin, for example, which is the alternative when you don't use the clown map to synchronize the work. The clown map is just that colorful one you saw on Jamie's screen a second ago there.
There it is. So he very
Colors.
brilliantly outlined these areas. So as long as they stay within these realms, then all of these guys will deform together.
Gonna work just fine.
I like this one. It's like he's like, I'm a clownfish now.
Oh,
Well, not a clownfish, because I guess those are just orange and white. But you know, a clownfish with makeup.
Let me slap some of this on. It's gonna be fine.
Oh, here I go.
Oh boy! Oh, give me some kisses, boys. The cancer's not that advanced and it ain't contagious.
I love bees, but they love me too.
Let's see here. So, all right, I've got these. I won't be able to proceed if I don't talk while I do it. Okay, I had to go back to this file and I need to save it out again because I realized I lost the position of all these, and that's a hassle. So, save as. We're going to do the triangle separation here. Save as, and then I'm going to right click and I'm going to parent, and I'm going to, I believe, if I just, in this case, clear parent, yes, because I put these all in place before I parented them. It took me a minute to realize that Blender is somewhat serious about clearing transform. So for instance, if you, what's a good example of this? If you have an item that you've parented to the object and then the object, the overall object has moved, when you clear that parentage, it'll snap back to its original position, which I'm not used to from other applications. And it took me a minute to realize what the workflow should be there. It's probably better, right? Because in a sort of like a more systematic situation where you have a bunch of stuff you're working on, you probably want that stuff to go back where it belongs so you can attach it to the next thing. I'm not 100% sure what the use case is there, but I'm assuming.
Oh yeah, because like in Maya, if you did that, it would just probably reset the transformations to its current position instead of snapping it back to its original.
Yeah.
When you delete the parent. Yeah.
And I think this is just like maybe the geekier way. Like this is what the CG nerd would expect behavior, and you want to have the option, and it's kind of like a coin toss between which is going to be default. So they just give you both options in this tool in Blender.
It's sensible, like you said. It's like you've adjusted to the other way, but this is more sensible, probably.
Yeah, I like it now that I know what's what. Okay, so I'm grabbing all these. I need to go to the basis view here so they're all nicely aligned with these empties that I'm going to use. Make sure I grab the triangle at the top of the world. There we go. Okay, why are we not getting it? There we go. We got it now. And let's see. I believe we can now detach these by pressing P. Selection, you just press P and you get a little menu, pick selection, and it will detach the ones that you've chosen. It's quite impressive. Yes. And now we don't need to deal with this guy. Okay, wait a minute. There should be one of these empties up here. Where's my top empty? Is this it? Did this one get jacked around? It did get jacked around. So we are going to, what do we need to do here? Let's just get this one back into shape. We'll just Z out its position. Wait. What is going on with this thing? It's way back here. It must still be. Oh, it's still mounted. That's the thing. It didn't get cleared. I didn't select it before, so we can do that now. Although I wouldn't expect it to be there regardless. But hey, look, it's doing its own thing. It's going its own way. It's marching to the beat of its own drummer.
Oh, and that reminds me of, that's like how in Blender, like if you'll duplicate an object, you'll select it, but the properties of that object that you are selecting won't show up initially. Like it's like you have to triple click the new one you've created. It'll keep the properties on the right hand side of the screen of the previous object. So I'll do that with like cameras and lights, and you'll start adjusting light properties, and it's like, oh yeah, exactly, the light orange.
Yeah. Okay. So you what you're saying is you've seen a scenario where when the light orange selection won't match the properties.
Correct.
Wow, I have not seen that myself. So
so it's like you'll duplicate. It's especially hard because when you're copying and pasting an object or duplicating an object, you will have the dual objects on top of each other. So you will move. Yeah. You'll start moving the pasted object, but it often is actually still the copied object that you are manipulating.
That son of a bitch.
So you think, or you'll select the pasted object, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it still seems to have the properties of the initial. And the only way I know is because I'll move a light over here, and then I'll be messing with the properties, and I'm like, it's not doing anything. And then I look, and it's like, oh, that's because the original light is changing.
Damn. Okay, I
So
was
it
not
could be-
aware of that. So that
it's-
is very good to know.
It is possible, however, I must say, that maybe I'm just not selecting the right object and like not realizing, because I have this phenomenon, and I don't know if I've told you, and I know this is sort of ruining the flow you had going, so I'll stop soon.
It's all good. We're just talking. It's fine.
But I have this phenomenon, which is really just my own idiocy, not paying attention, where I will go to the store and I will be looking for the items that I'm searching for. And when I'm seeking things in a grocery store, I'm like this. I'm like just everywhere looking, scanning. And I keep doing that even after I've found the item I want. So I go to grab the item I want, and I'm scanning as I'm grabbing the item, and 50% chance I grab the item next to it. And I've done this so many times where I come home with a regular soda instead of a diet soda, or a different bag of, like, if it looks enough different, I'll notice it. But if it's like, you know, Mountain Dew versus Diet Mountain Dew, or, you know, Dr. Pepper versus Diet, so many times where I'm like, I grab the one next to it. And so
interesting. You're not in the moment. You're ahead of the moment. Yeah. You're on to the next thing before you've even finished the last thing, right?
Or I'm double checking that I'm getting the right thing as I'm getting the right thing, which is stupid because I've seen the right thing. So stop checking. But it's just, so it's very possible that this translates back into how I am in Blender, where I think I'm moving an object but I'm too busy scanning for, you know, Frappuccino Oreos to grab regular ones, you know.
Wow, they have Frappuccino Oreos? That sounds
probably
right.
seems. I know they have a coffee
watermelon.
Yeah, watermelon. That was a wild one.
Coffee? I don't know if I ever tried the watermelon. Coffee sounds all right. I haven't had an Oreo in forever. I forget, you know, if they're gluten free.
You know, one
so hard.
One fun fact about Oreos is they're vegan, but they don't advertise that. Yeah.
You can lick that cream all day long, vegans.
Right, which is crazy because it seems like it's lard, right? Like you just expect, like, well, that's lard and sugar, right?
It's like probably a partially hydrogenated vegetable oil to shelf stabilize it. Oh, Sophie Wheeler, welcome. VOGFYI. VOG, video on gaming. Violence over Guadalajara. Violas or guns? How's it going, Sophie? Thanks for being here.
Tough choice. Violas or guns?
Yeah. Let us know. They both have their merits. I guess if I could only choose one, I'd have to choose guns.
Yeah, it's situational. I have a lot more
confidence in the value of a gun to me. Unless I could be, you know, if this is like a resale situation, then we got to discuss make and model and all that sort of thing.
What if it's a situation where you're one of the people at, you know, that you're trying to stand up to some soldiers, and like you're supposed to put the flower in there.
If I can play the viola, I mean, if it's plural soldiers, I probably don't want a gun, right? Unless I'm like joining them. I guess that's an avenue. Like, I'm gonna bring him down from within and not get shot by like, I got a gun, let's go, you know.
Probably wait a second. I just realized that I'm thinking of a viola as a flower, and it's not, right?
No, I'm thinking of a stringed instrument. A violet would be a flower. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a flower that's exactly named viola or very, very nearly named viola.
Probably some kind of the genus and species or flora, fauna. If that's
chrysanthemum.
I like the idea of a viola gun. You know, it's sort of like these desperado, like, you know, the gun.
Oh yes, Antonio Banderas.
Guitars, la guitarra.
What was the first one was called the mariachi, right?
Mariachi, yes.
A little bit of Robert Rodriguez Classico there.
Oh, I just recently, speaking of him, I've never seen Death Proof, which was the Grindhouse. I think it was
the one he did with Quentin Tarantino, right? Yeah.
Quentin Tarantino, yeah. And like, it was just one of those. I really like him, and I can't think of his name.
Kurt Russell.
Kurt Russell, yeah. And I don't know. It's just one of those things that like don't remember how it came up, but I was thinking about it, and then all of a sudden, you know how that like happens where you'll think of something or you'll see something, and then all of a sudden it's like everywhere, it starts showing up. Like I see a poster of it online, I'm like, man, I never saw that. I heard it wasn't received that well, but it seems fun.
Did you watch it yet?
I haven't yet.
I thought so. I watched all of the Rodriguez one, and I thought it was fine, but pretty forgettable.
Yeah.
I mean, not garbage, as I recall. But I'm pretty easy to please. I like if I can sit still. That is, I like a lot of B movies and Grindhouse, and I like.
You know what you're getting, so they're smart. They're setting it up right, you know.
I did not get through Death Proof. It didn't hold my attention. I like Kurt Russell as well. I generally can enjoy a Kurt Russell performance, but I don't know. My recollection is just sort of feeling like I didn't enjoy his psycho-ness that much, and the story didn't draw me in. So, to each his own, though. Well made, as I recall. Now, do you know how to read Cyrillic? Because I'd love to know how to say Beppa. It looks like Beppa Hemyoba, but I know that's not right because half of those letters are not pronounced that way because it's Cyrillic, and I don't know how to pronounce Cyrillic. So, oh shit! Blender just went bye-bye.
Oh man, that was it. Huh?
Pressed spacebar or something when I was like leaning over to look at something, and it just went to the. I have no clever thing to say there. It went away.
It went away.
Recover last session.
We've got some, okay. So VOG, FYI, this video, I feel like it's, I don't know. But yeah, Vark Tech says, and I have no idea how to read their name, so I wouldn't. I've learned my lesson from. I was just talking about how one time I used to have a Batman podcast that I was on for a couple of years, and there was a viewer that I mispronounced their username. It wasn't their name. It was their username. And I sort of was like, well, you made a complicated username so it's not my fault. It's your fault. And then I guess they were having a down day and then they stopped listening to the podcast because so I was like, well, okay, so never mind. Like
he was having
instead
a bad
of
one,
me digging my heels in and being like, well, it's not my fault I know how to pronounce something. I'm just going to be like, well, I just probably shouldn't try because I don't know. I mean, like, look, if people are having such a rough day that a mispronunciation of their name is going to set them off, there's almost nothing you can do about it. That's sort of how I felt.
It sucks for them, and you might feel crappy about it. But on the other hand, like you cannot, this is going to come off wrong, but you can't save every ant, right? Like
that's sort of, I think, was my attitude. That was my attitude, but I was in that day. I remember particularly kind of, it was one of those days where I've had enough, and then everything was just, a nail, and then I sort of made that point, but like in a really not sort of like the way you put it is like, hey, that's like a pretty reasonable thing to say. Like it may be harsh to some, but I think it's true. Where I was like, you're wrong, screw you, like that sort of attitude, which is probably why it was taken so hard. But yeah, I hope that person found a better podcast with somebody who's more understanding. I do too.
In their difficult lives, a lot of people live difficult circumstances, and they turn to podcasts and they turn to the internet for like solace. Yeah. It's why we have so many fucking psychos amongst video game fans. It's that's pejorative, right, to call them fucking psychos. But, looking at video game fandom, it's not unreasonable in some cases. But, I chalk it up to like people that are so miserable that this system of entertainment can relieve them of that misery, and it becomes vitally important to their well-being. And they begin to exclude other people from, any kind of kindness. If it threatens their, whatever the corporation has, shoveled into their psychic hole that needed to be filled. And I feel bad that they are in that place, because I've certainly needed media to kind of get by it from time to time in my life. And Anyway, we kind of got off on a tangent there.
No, yeah. I mean, well said and great point. And but yeah, it's knowing yourself, and at least there's always this part where I feel like people have to, not have to, but the people that come out of these situations best are the ones that are able to stop and have the perspective to say, what am I doing? Is the thing that I'm choosing right now the thing that I should be choosing? Like, if I were giving somebody else advice in this situation and they were me, is this what I would tell them to choose? And I think the people that go, hey, don't alienate your loved ones over this game.
Yeah.
Like, if they can have that moment of clarity, it's like the same thing that, when a person thinks of trying like heroin and going, I'm going to try heroin once, that they go, hey, maybe don't, because it's like this just never think of a time where someone's tried heroin once and it was like they were better for it, but they have to have that moment of clarity, or else sometimes it'll take a person just like you or I who doesn't have that moment and they become a disturbed individual, just like you're saying.
They become trapped.
So your empathy is well received because you're acknowledging that could have been you, but you, I think, had that moment. I've had those moments where you go, I'm not going to go down this path. I'm not going to choose this thing because I think it's going to be more destructive.
Sometimes I can choose, sometimes I very much relate to people that are stuck in that way. Like recently I've been trying to improve some of my habits around the house. Like I get into arguments with the radio or the TV. And I'm just annoyed with it, or I'm annoyed with their perspective, or I'm annoyed that they are being stupid about, whatever the topic they're presenting is or whatever. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I am totally losing my train of thought, and I can't keep it now.
I'll stop distracting you.
It's all good. It's just I can't. I got nothing to share at this stage. So I'm going to try to bring myself back around to what I'm doing here. So what we got here? We got all these points. All these empties, and they need to get connected to the triangles, which I have now. Okay, I had to go through this process several times because I kept making little mistakes that would lead to issues. So I think this is try number 3, but we're getting closer here. Edit mode. I'm going to. I spent a good part of yesterday. I didn't literally spend all day on that problem yesterday, so I think we've discussed this before. But one of the things I have to do in order to stay consistent on a day-to-day basis is I have to only ask of myself, just like. I have the system where I have a big list of stuff and I need to put in at least 5 minutes on everything on that list. And a lot of things just end up being 5 minutes. And then other things that are important, they end up going further, but I don't allow them to take over my day, blah, 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 blah. So I don't know why I went into that level of detail. It's not exactly relevant.
No, let me support your answer here. This is the whole peanut butter and jelly sandwich creation explanation. You have to open the jar. You have to get a knife out of the drawer. Mm-hmm. So these are things that maybe the actual act of doing the thing is only taking 5 minutes, but all of the steps to get there take longer. And so the idea of sitting and going, did that really take me all day? Yes, it did, because in a way, and maybe there's distractions in between. You check an email, you talk to somebody asks you a question, you notice a message on your phone, you look at that, you should reply. This fell over, let me clean that up, let me throw this trash away, God forbid I go to the bathroom. Your day is gone. So there's your ammo.
Yep. And so that is, I go through that on a pretty regular basis. I've been working to improve that behavior through this system. But long story short, it was throughout the day. I was coming back to it and this doesn't work, and trying to figure that thing out, and this doesn't work, and trying to figure that thing out. But the reason I brought it up is because I was starting to say that I started the day just learning basic modeling stuff that I hadn't learned in Blender yet, like stuff that I know, like loop cuts and inserts and stuff like that. But taking the time to learn where they are in Blender, look at the options, look at the limitations, and test stuff out. I even did some like theoretical topological transitions. I've worked a lot of these out for myself, but not all of them. And so I did an exercise where I did 3s to you know, where you're changing the topological flow but maintaining quads. So, you know, you might have five edges and you need to convert that to 3 edges and then down to 1 and then up to 2 and blah, 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 blah. So I worked out a bunch of those scenarios. It was a really good time. It was a nice way to start the day. Just kind of like some fundamentals, you know, some warm up, learn something that I wasn't too familiar with in Blender, and just stuff that I'm going to use all the time now. Which is nice. Good feeling.
And it's good because yeah, I've done that stuff too. Like I did the anvil tutorial, the donut tutorial, these ones just to get the feel for it. And like right now, if I go back into Blender and like I'm like, oh crap, how do I do this? But the good thing is I've done it, and if I just browse through the hotkeys, like Andrew Price has a Blender hotkey sheet you can download, and so much of the way that it's like a really quick, solid cheat sheet. It's just like tabbing in and out of edit mode, 1, 2, 3 to get edges, points, and faces. You know, there's just your hot menus, your or is that what they're called? Basically just your right click or space
context
bar.
menus.
Yeah, context exactly. So that kind of stuff. It's like I know that it's like, okay, which hand do I use to, you know, honk the horn and, you know, steer the bike? But once at least if you've done it, you know you're going to get back into the flow. And that's what I like about Blender is it's clearly set up. And I think Spicer talked about this too. Like for the flow of working, it really feels like it's foreign at first in comparison to other programs. But once you kind of start getting the language, it really kind of flows nicely. And that sort of fundamental stuff is at first a little arduous, but once you get into it, you do get that little kind of that Zen feeling of being like, oh, okay, trying to get the flow of everything. It's like, you know,
they managed to do a very decent job of keeping things at your fingertips.
Yes.
You know, you've got your tools at your fingertips in a lot of different situations. And that's something I really appreciate. Blender, over all of the 3D tools that I've used, feels like it's made by somebody that works with it on a regular basis, or people that work with it every day. ZBrush, made by some very intelligent people and made to do some amazing things, but not made to be like ready to rock for like right out of the box. It is made for people that work with it every day, but it's made for them to make it work for their workflow every day. You know? Yeah,
ZBrush is like it's like people who have been what are the I'm thinking of this. There's you know those hiking shoes with the red laces. I think they're Danners. They're the classic.
Never heard of them.
Really? Okay, so like there's hiking shoes that like they've been around forever, and they're very well known as like kind of being like red laces and like tan leather. They are kind of one of the most renowned, tried and true. Yeah, see that like so the first one's like a modern one. That second one is the diehard classic Danners, right? So those ones are the kind that you have to endure the structure of the material for quite some time. But then what happens is it molds to your foot, and then you've got this really solid boot that fits your foot well. That's what ZBrush is for 3D World.
Yes,
it's like
that's
you have to
analogy.
Grind through to get this boot to fit. But once it fits, oh, does it fit? But man, it's like, yeah, you're initially going, what's a tool now? Okay, a brush is not the tool.
Industrial quality to it, like a tool,
like tooling.
Like in a mold shop, I think the tool is a synonym for the pattern, the thing that you're casting, or it might be the mold. The mold might be the tool in a mold shop.
I think it's a conjunction. So like tooling is generally like even the jacket of the mold, I think, can be considered part of the tooling, because like the tooling is generally
Matrix.
Maybe, yeah. Jeez. So I mean,
right? It's all kinds of crazy.
Yeah,
what is the dude here that has the famous mold making video in LA? Juan something. I've watched it before. I found him through Mark Avery, I think, back in the day when you had to learn special effects stuff on VHS tapes.
Oh, really? No, I don't know if I'm familiar.
Yeah, I don't think I've met him, but my buddy knows him. Anyway, go on.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just the tooling is always the thing that makes the final prototype or not prototype, the final thing. But like I think that so if you create tooling from an original and then the tooling goes away and then you create a copy, the copy from that original cast, that original mold, I think can become the tooling.
Oh man.
But I could be wrong, but like I've heard of things referred to as tooling in many different contexts like that, where like I'm seeing a mold or I'm seeing what is a copy from a mold. But I don't know. It's So clearly that's what ZBrush was going for. They were like, hey, real world applications kind of thing. Right. But it really has kind of like, it seemed like they dipped their toes into that. And then everything else, they're just sort of like, everything else is going to be more similar to 3D programs.
Name the ZBrush guy, Olfer, maybe.
Oh yeah, I think it's something like that.
And I wonder if that's maybe his background.
That would make sense. Yeah.
Let's see here now.
Okay, I'm gonna stop distracting you.
No, it's all good. I am slowly but surely figuring it all out. There we go. And okay, so it's been a hassle to set up, but once this is set up, it's a lot easier to use than the old system. So what I got to do now is I have the separate group of triangles, and now for each of these shape keys, I have to make a shape key of the triangles that matches the name and puts the pieces into position. And we're just going to do that for one of these, just a proof of concept here. I'm pretty confident in it. And then we are going to attempt to import a model that has the triangles, remove the triangles, and add them to the stems. Just make sure that doesn't munch things up. And if that all works, then we're golden.
All right. I love it,
we'll get there.
Thanks for doing that.
Oh man, like I like solving these kinds of problems. My challenge is that it's mostly emotional. Like most of my challenges are not technical, they're emotional. Like I'll get stuck like everybody, right? But it's not really a problem of I'm going to be stuck forever. It's not like advanced mathematics. I'm not inventing the surreal numbers here. I just need to follow some instructions and use a little interpretation, do a little research, and do some experiments until the exact scenario I want to accomplish is figured out. And I forgot what my point was.
No, well, you're just saying, you're pointing out that, at least you don't have the kind of mental block issue of fighting through these things. It's like you actually enjoy the challenge of it. It's being in the state of mind. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like, and that's almost more frustrating because as somebody with minor anxiety, still have it, but I deal with it. Knowing the difference between when you are operating optimally and everything is solid and you're good and you're in a flow, and then trying to do what you do when you're like that, when you aren't feeling like that, is the real challenge that people who don't go through these sort of things, and I don't even think I understand even close to what you go through, but I understand at least conceptually enough in my own life what it's like for me to try and fight through my normal workflow on a sort of bad day.
On a rough day, I get
it. And it pisses you. It's like frustrating beyond all just the negativity and the anxiety and bad emotions and all the stuff you're feeling, because you're like, dude, I can do this awesome on a normal day and like enjoy it. But today I'm going to be suffering. And it just, really frustrating.
It's absolutely, I mean, I don't want to overstate it. There are days when I feel like the term horrific is not unreasonable. But then I reflect on the fact that, hey, I got this great family and they really look after me, and they enable me to go beyond my limitations by doing things like helping me with my accountability and that sort of thing. And so like I try to be realistic about it. But as you say, there are days where it's like, this is stupid. I'm scared. It's like being scared. It's like there's nothing stupid about white canvas fright, or what, I forget what it's called, white canvas syndrome.
Yeah, blank canvas.
Canvas. for those that don't know, you're looking at a blank piece of paper and you're like, what do I draw? And you just can't get started, But that can be debilitating.
It can.
That feeling of hesitation, right? I can't quite. But as you say, it's like, or as we're trying to express, it's not as though I'm solving an unsolved problem.
Right.
Like,
well, you're
least,
just trying to coach yourself to get through something that you know how to get through. And it's just whether or not you're in the state to do it. And it's just something that people who don't go through like this sort of mental anxiety, stress, or conditions that they can't empathize with. And I know plenty of people that, like, I'm jealous of the fact that I know that they've never had a day where they were like, I can't deal with all of this. Like they get stressed like a normal person, but like they don't have a day where their brain is like, they're like, oh, my brain, it's not a good day. And they're not dealing with the normal brain like that they're used to. I just know that they haven't been through that. Like I could just see that they don't understand. And to any level of anybody who understands that, it's just like, man, it's rough. And all the things you're saying are coping mechanisms to make you come back down to, the ground and go, look, dude, stop, don't get into this. But it doesn't change the fact that, the way that you're feeling and what you're dealing with is very real, even if it's not valid in whatever, rational way you can think about it.
Right. Mental health. It's not your fault, but it is. No. It's not. I like to say it's not my fault, but it is my responsibility.
Oh, totally. Like how to deal with it and how to react to it. But
also people that don't, people that have the attitude of, or that are like anti-welfare, for example, or have just pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
Right.
They don't get that. That's not an option for everybody.
Right.
They seem to think that some people are just destined to be like this weak, enslaved, not literally enslaved, but like enslaved by culture and society underclass. You just gotta, fall in line with some kindly employer that can exploit your wages and make it possible for you to live in this society. And whoever they are, you just got to go take that, pick yourself up, go take that McDonald's job, go take this, whatever it is. You don't deserve any opportunity to work your shit out or to be advised on how to deal with life. It's taken me 44 years to get to a semi put together state, and it relies heavily upon the people around me. And just like all those so-called put together people rely heavily on like the system of roads and water and society's support. I remember a bunch of people getting upset when Obama said something along the lines of, like everybody is beholden to the. I don't think he said beholden to the state, but the idea is like we're all interdependent. Like everybody is relying on each other. Everybody is using each other to get by. Just because you built this business and you have achieved a measure of success doesn't mean you did it on your own. And people really took exception to that. But they're in a fantasy if they think it's not the case.
I actually saw recently Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Dude, I love that guy. Sometimes
he's a great guy, and sometimes he's not so great. Sometimes he's a wonderful guy. And all of these things. That's the one thing that I noticed that like what people miss in their impressions of him is like Will Sasso does a fantastic Arnold impression, but like he says all of these things all the time as his like thinking phrase, and I haven't seen somebody do that yet. But anyways,
good point.
He had a graduation speech, a college graduation speech. I don't know where it was, but he said something to that effect where he's like, I'm not a self-made man. I was made. Yes, I put in the work. I did all these things. I came to the United States. Like I took these risks, but I had nothing. Like I had, all these people that one Thanksgiving, I had nothing. And all of the bodybuilders from the gym brought all the furniture, the cups, the plates to me. Like that was just one small example of me having something and a sense of normalcy because I had people who brought everything to me and I was able to capitalize on that. But that is very much to your point of we are all beneficiaries of different things, and some people don't benefit from that. Like one thing I always think is that I've learned and was fortunate enough to be raised to understand is that hard work is something that when you persevere to get to a result, you can enjoy the fruits of that and also enjoy the process. But that is not a normal, it's not an innate reaction to work. Like resistance is mostly the reaction to work because it's uncomfortable and, you know, it's these
risky,
things that,
right? You're putting time in and you don't know what you're going to get out, and your brain is pre-programmed to ferret that shit out and try to avoid it, right?
Exactly. And that is just one small example of a thing that I've learned and that I benefited from, that I was raised to. And I'm like, that just even that one thing, if you took that away from me, I wouldn't be where I am. And like, I think so much of any success that I've had has to do with the fact that I can enjoy work, but I also know how to buckle down and do something. And it is sort of these standards that allow you to achieve things. And if somebody just like me could not have a goal and not know what to do, and then on top of it, maybe have not been taught that lesson, and they could be that homeless person or that person who's on drugs or whatever.
You know, it's dealing with generational poverty, right? Your grandparents were deprived of their property or never had the ability to obtain property due to whatever social circumstances. And thus they had to work all the time. And thus they never were able to pass along significant skills and values to their kids. And it just continues and continues and continues. And that's the benefit of the welfare state. That's the benefit. I don't want to be like, socialism, but that's the benefit of social support for people that can't get it together, whether it's they can't get it together because they're assholes, or they can't get it together because life is full of people that can't get it together for no reason other than that's where they landed, you know?
Yeah, to me, the thing that sorts it all out, because, you know, we've had this socialism, capitalism discussion, and like, I totally believe in socialist programs, you know, like there's a lot of not socialist countries that have really socialist programs that work really well for them. So it's like, I'm not against those in any manner, but it's always a matter of, it's like the presentation of opportunity and the stakes to succeed, but also the stakes to fail. And those have to be in good measure for somebody to capitalize on them. And there's always going to be people that also fail, that they can't rise to those occasions. You know, it's like homeless shelters. I always think about, like, you know, there has to be a certain point where somebody's willing to give up their autonomy to get some help. And that's the problem with a lot of, not the problem, that is the cost. That is the cost of being in a shelter, right? You don't get your own, you can't drink in there, you can't do drugs, there's a curfew. So there's a cost benefit ratio that each individual has to choose. And some people choose to never do that. But that's also why it's like, well, if they make that choice, I'm cool with that, but I'm also on a personal level cool with only certain types of help for that person, right? Like, whereas I can't
stop drinking or using drugs, they need treatment. You know,
they need treatment. Yeah,
that's no joke. As an addict, I can tell you, it's fucking no joke. Like I bear out most of my problems. I'm an oversharer, and that makes my internet presence both entertaining and difficult and dangerous sometimes. But to know that you don't want to do X, but then some other part of your brain completely overrides that choice. Like, that is not something you can just work on.
Yeah.
I mean, absolutely, you have to work on it, but it's not something you can be expected to necessarily achieve without support.
Yeah. And it's like one of those things that I always struggle with, like drugs and substances. Like, from a moral level, I always go, well, what's the point in incarcerating people for these things? They are the ones who lose, you know? They are the ones that are paying the most cost out of anyone. What is the point of all this? The war on drugs. Yeah. So, but then I hear stories where somebody will get put in jail and they get clean and they're like, I never would have gotten clean. And I'm like, well, I don't know that that's still the answer, is to incarcerate that person for that was a benefit of them being incarcerated for that issue. But I don't have a better way of forcing a person to get clean. And especially once they're grateful for it, they're like, that needed to happen to me, or else I wouldn't have, and I'd be dead. and you're like,
yeah, I think it's a situation
tough.
where it's like jail is what we have.
Yeah.
But there have to be better ways. In fact, there are better ways, but we also have a problem. Like we have a problem in America where, and if you're not from America, this might make you throw up a little bit. The prison guards union in America actively campaigns against relaxing drug laws because fewer prisoners means fewer jobs for prison guards. So fuck them. You know, every last one of them. Now, not that they're bad people individually, but they're participating in a system and they're actively benefiting from a system that makes that takes freedom away from people that need treatment. You know, they don't need to lose their freedom. They need to be guided, down maybe a narrower path with respect to some freedoms.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I know it's a cop out to say it's a multifaceted situation, but it really is, because it's like certain people, like I'm like, well, if you're a bad enough individual, just get rid of you. And then I totally also believe in rehabilitation, and prison for that. And so it's like, but it's a lot of this stuff also just starts coming down to like time and resources and what people will allocate and what the government will allocate. And it gets really tough. But yeah, I mean, there's no denying
it's
too,
also
like
the richest country in the world. So,
for sure.
Anybody can afford it.
yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, we allocate money to all kinds of stupid shit, and there's a real issue with the incentive to keep people imprisoned as a workforce. I mean, that's a real deal, But my brother, speaking of assholes, it was a prison guard. Hey,
right. But is he an asshole?
No, he's not.
Okay, good.
But so speaking to him about it, I've asked him, I was like, so what's your feeling on people who are in there who shouldn't be, or people who you think have just been dealt a bad hand and or they've been found guilty of something. Like, obviously he's not at their trials, but he knows what a lot of those people did. He's not a prison guard anymore. But his feeling was, he goes, look, there are definitely people that are in there that they have messed up. Something has happened, and maybe it's not all in their control. But he goes, the difference is those people, they get in there, they behave differently. He goes, they do their time, they work with you. They're a lot more, they're much more human, And he goes, but the thing is, in my experience, he says, everybody that's in there there's a good reason for it. And he goes, it's not, some of them it's really obvious. And some of them it's like kind of more to that thing where it's like, well, this person probably just got in a bad situation. They made a bad decision. But he's like kind of acknowledging like generally pretty regular people, like like your buddy, the totally innocent guy doesn't end up in here. He's like, those aren't the people that I deal with. Yeah. And so to his point, it's like, I totally can acknowledge that there are probably some people that have been screwed and shouldn't be in there. But to his experience, he's like, behaviorally, it's a totally different animal. And he's like, there's just certain things that people will do, and maybe it could be mental health. There could be all kinds of reasons. It's not just because they're evil, but that he's like, there's a reason that every one of these people that I've dealt with is in here. And so it's very interesting hearing that perspective, because my brother's a very empathetic person and he's very conscientious. So he's like, he likes giving people a chance and an opportunity. He doesn't want to, be brutal to people. He doesn't want to be like that, but he's like, there's also just people that's the only thing they respond to. Yeah. And so that there has to be a point where you get to that, so anyways, just to make this whole conversation even more huge and elaborate.
Yeah, I'm trying to decide what I think about the idea that at some point you have to be brutal, but I think that we might have to save that for another day.
I mean, yeah, to me, it's never to the point where somebody just necessarily deserves it. It could be to the point where a person is so damaged and broken that that's all they understand.
Yeah.
And it doesn't justify it. but it's communication, right? Sometimes it's just communication. You're like, this is the only, I need you to do this, and this is the only way to get through to you, because this is the only language you communicate in. And that's how some of that stuff works out, right or wrong, you know?
Yeah. Interesting. Well, there's a ton to learn, as always, a fascinating perspective, and enjoyable to toss around these heady topics in our own, from our own limited perspectives, and learn from each other. So I appreciate that. And I do believe we're going to wrap things up here. Anything else you want to add before we roll?
Anybody who is checking us out and paying attention, thank you for listening to us just absolutely verbal process. I am a part of this verbal process as well. And, you know, it's fun to just be able to pontificate and really talk about super complex stuff with a person like you, Verbal. So thank you very much.
I appreciate that.
For letting and being such a good listener and a considerate person. And thank you to any of you guys out there who are listening, and also who are enjoying what we're doing. And that's pretty much what I got. All
right.
So just keep checking us out, if you will.
I appreciate that. And likewise, on all those points, my friends, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children, et cetera, we can be found at voidstrummer.com/Mildewds. We'll just give you a quick tour of that to get an idea of what the heck we're working on here. So this is voidstrummer.com, is where I keep my procedural art practice. I think I'm going to bring my traditional art practice over to here, perhaps at some point, one of these tabs. But for now, we got the Mildewds project, which is Jamie and I's collaborative project here. And it is an NFT collection of just a handful of these delightful mushroom fellows here that he and I have been developing together for the last several months. There might actually only be one or two currently available for sale, if that. They might be completely sold out. Let's take a quick look.
Yeah, last I thought I checked
here.
Day before yesterday, I thought I saw 2.
Let's see. 7 days ago, do we have, for sale? Yes, we still have 2 for sale directly from us, but also if you want to, this is, you know, we don't make any of these like rare or special on purpose. Like, I am pretty far from building out any kind of strategy as it relates to like the traits that come up more or less. People have asked me, and I'm like, it's that we pick stuff that we like.
Yeah, we just see the ones that have great character and look good, because there's certain ones that just don't. All the elements come together, and you're like, it's unique, but it's not. You know, the shadow falls weird or whatever.
Yeah, or it's like completely hidden inside the cap or whatever it is. So here at Primordial Saturnus, there's only 2 left. So if you're inclined to collect rare NFTs, there will not be any more Saturnus from this batch, most likely ever. We will do more Saturnus in the future as it gets updated and revised and so forth. But
they won't be the same. They'll be a different
if there are going to be any more of these, it'll be only a handful.
Yeah, as you can see, we're even making new stems and caps and everything. So the character of these guys is going to be pretty unique. We may we could, take these features and replug them in some way. Yeah. But my guess is we won't be able to resist monkeying with it. So these will be, I'm sure, very unique.
At the very best, it will be a re-roll. We might have a few more that are like, an anniversary edition, or I may do an airdrop of additional Primordial Saturnus to the folks that already have them at some point. That's a possibility. But anyway, I'm going on and trying to do my shilling thing. But the point is, we make these cool things together. We're working on a new species, and if you're inclined to collect, then go hit them up on Tezos and pick one up for yourselves. And if you're inclined to ask questions or learn about NFTs or procedural work, what have you, then just hit us up and we will let you know what we know. All right, my friends. Cheers.
Bye.